Hello, this is Catherine from Accelerated Reader Reading Books for You. Today I will be reading Chapter 57 from Two Worlds, a novel of friends and foes from strange places, by Laura T. Lee. Before I begin reading, I would like to give a big thanks to the author for sending me this book to read on my channel. In the description below, I've included links where you may find and purchase this book. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Chapter 57. Stacy, who had been looking at the floor, stared at her in shock. Lily did the same, looking up so fast she almost got whiplash. "Who are you, and where did you come from?" she demanded. Emily smiled. "I used to be a human back then. I knew Sophie. We were best friends when we were young. Days before the war started, Sophie asked me for help, and I accepted. I fought well. It was me who alerted Sophie that Teresa was taking over. When the war ended, Sophie left almost immediately. But at the last minute, she pulled me aside. She thanked me for keeping my loyalty. She passed on some magic to me, enough to stay young for a much, much longer time. But now the power has worn off, as you can see." Emily stared sadly at her aged hands, then shook her head as if to clear her thoughts. "We're here." The car pulled up to the curb. Before them, a winding path led up a large hill to a mansion. Mist curled around its walls. "You must go," the old woman said, although she sounded unenthusiastic. "Thank you," Lily replied. She and her friends exited the car. As Lily walked away, she heard the driver's door open, and Emily's fingers grabbed her wrist tightly. Lily whipped around. "Please," Emily said. "I can't let you go there. It's too dangerous." She sounded uncannily like Teresa. "I have to," Lily answered, ignoring the urge to yank her arm away. "Then let me give you a few pieces of advice. Don't challenge Sophie to a duel. Don't speak her name, as it would alert her to your presence. And don't ever, ever get captured," the old woman said in a hoarse whisper. Lily watched as Emily closed the door and revved the car engine. She rolled down the window. "Good luck, sugar." She smiled and drove away, leaving Lily and her friends to walk away to their fate. Lily took a deep breath. "Everyone ready?" she asked. Her friends gripped their luggage and nodded. "Then let's do this." They walked toward the mansion. The first problem, the door was locked. Fortunately, Teresa had sent tiny bags in their pockets that grew to full size as they took them out. Lily pulled an extra strong laser cutter out of her bag and busted the lock. After that, she and the others took the stuff they needed, stashed their bags behind a shrub, and entered Sophie's headquarters. After walking around for 30 seconds, Lily decided that either Sophie was insanely rich or she had very good magic. Huge glass and diamond chandeliers hung from the ceiling, reflecting soft light off the gold walls. The floor was polished to the point of perfection. Giant red curtains were draped over the large windows. In other words, Lily considered the place extremely dangerous. But first things first, cut the lights. Lily whispered, "Stick the dimmers on the walls." She had learned from Stacy that dimmers sent an electrical charge throughout the building, harmless to living things, but the lights would fizz out within a moment. They brandished their dimmer grenades and set to work as silently as possible, attaching them to every wall they could find in the room and activating the 5-minute timer on each of them. When they were done, they crouched behind a velvet couch and waited. Bzzzt. Lily winced as an electrical charge raced through the mansion and cut the lights. After a few moments, in darkness, Stacy whispered, "Let's go." Luckily, Lily had explained their plan to the elves before they packed. She and the others got out their flashlights and got out from behind the couch. The search dragged on. Occasionally, Lily would hear a noise, like someone was slipping between the marble columns that lined the walls. But when she shined her flashlight at the spot, there was nothing in sight, which just added to her growing fears. Soon, the noises started happening more frequently. Lily realized that the sounds were heading toward the far wall, as though something important was hidden there. As fast as she could, Lily whipped out a net bomb, switched the net size to maximum, and chuckled it at the wall. Boom! She could hear the net lashing itself to the far wall and the sounds of the footsteps retreating. Next to her, Stacy whispered, "Where's Sophie?" Big mistake. Instantly, the footsteps came in their direction. Stacy yelped and vanished, her flashlight falling to the ground. Lily heard Tara's and Jake's lights also hitting the floor. She was alone. Lily backed up into the nearest wall, taking deep breaths so she wouldn't panic. She realized just how much she hated being in the dark. As she calmed down, a voice said, "Hello, Lily." Lily was instantly alert. The light snapped on, momentarily blinding her. Sophie stood in front of her, and she couldn't help noticing how much the sorceress looked like the stone statue in the fountain. Behind her sat 3 screens. The leftmost one showed Tara, her back against the wall, a look of pure terror on her face as a dark shadow loomed over her. The middle screen revealed Jake, dangling from the ceiling over a pit of black scorpions. The screen didn't have audio, but Lily could tell he was screaming. The last screen showed Stacy sprawled on the floor, staring at the mechanical monsters slowly approaching her. Sophie smiled. "Decide which 2 of your friends will be saved." Lily swallowed. Her best friends, who had helped her through their numerous adventures. And yet only 2 Sophie would let go. She recalled what Emily had said, "And don't ever, ever let Sophie capture you." The things that would happen to the person she didn't choose. Lily's mind came up blank as she tried to think of a plan. I can't," she murmured. The sorceress shrugged. "I'll wait." Suddenly, Lily had a crazy idea, but only if the person in mind was listening. "Release Tara and Stacy," she whispered. "Release Tara and Stacy!" Lily yelled. Sophie grinned. "Very well." Tara and Stacy disappeared from their screens. Lily desperately thought, "Teresa, please help." She stared at Jake's screen. If her plan didn't work, he would be abandoned to Sophie with no chance of mercy. Sophie smiled and Jake started to fall. It wasn't until Jake was halfway down to the scorpions that he realized what was going on. As he tried to stop his fall, a jet of gray mist smashed into him and he vanished. Sophie, whose back was to the screen, grinned triumphantly. Lily had to play up the act, or she would get suspicious. "No!" she howled in an anguished tone that was a bit over-dramatic. She lunged at Sophie, but the sorceress blocked her attack easily. "How can you be so cruel?" she shouted. Since she was already terrified, it didn't take much to look horrified. Sophie smiled smugly. Then a look of confusion, then shock, came across her face. She whirled around as a torrent of mist slammed into her, and she disappeared. Teresa appeared in front of Lily, magic swirling around her features. "Hold on!" she yelled, and Lily's vision turned dark. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for Chapter 58. Don't forget to like and subscribe. In the description below, I've included links where you may find and purchase this book.